Welcome, everyone, to Surviving the Shift. This 4-episode series will explore the ins and outs of online distance learning, both for parents and educators, as this becomes our new reality. Each episode will be focusing on a specific stage of education. In the past, we explored early childhood and primary education, and the challenges that they've been facing now that they've been open for some time. For this episode, we will focus on online distance learning and children with exceptionalities. I am your host, Michelle Ressa Aventejado. I am the Executive Director of Best Buddies Philippines, and joining us today for this panel discussion, we have Erickson Perez, who is the headmaster and founder of One World School, Dr. Jan Harold Sia, who is a developmental and behavioral pediatrician at Makati Medical Center. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hi, Michelle. Good afternoon. Thanks for having us today.
Good afternoon, Erickson.
Hi, all. Thank you, Rappler, for having us.
Hi, Doc. Thanks for joining us, too. Okay, so let's set the landscape here because there is definitely a significant difference in educating individuals with exceptionalities. And many know and understand that there's a certain level of skill, training, education to address their needs. And sometimes, well, in this situation, I'm sure that some parents may not feel as adept in meeting these educational needs of their children at this time. So my question first would be for Erickson here, and how has your school adapted so far, and how can you share or expound on any of the challenges that you guys have been facing?
Okay, well, Michelle, in the beginning stages of the pandemic, it was a real struggle for everyone in the whole community. So that includes me, actually, the teachers, the parents, and of course the students. The majority of us were not trained, and none of us were prepared for this. So it was really hard in the beginning. Just to give everybody some perspective, in pre-pandemic, at the beginning of the school year, there's always a group of new teachers and new students, and it's expected that group of new teachers and new students will struggle in the beginning. But the good thing is you have experienced teachers and returning students who will help them out to get them to adapt to the new school. But with the pandemic, it's like everybody in the school is brand new.
Right.
You have a whole set of administrators, teachers, students, and everybody's trying to learn how to do this at the same time. So in the beginning, it was really, really difficult. But as hard and as overwhelming as it was, we had no choice but to adapt. And that's mainly for one main reason, and that is that the children, including the kids with special needs, they deserve to continue learning. And it's their right to continue learning, even in this situation. And what we're seeing now after a few months of having online learning with our kids is that the desire and then the desire for the kids to learn and then the desire for the teachers to continue teaching is still there. And I think one of the reasons is they really miss each other. So if that's the case, then we just had to adapt and make sure that we could make it work for all the kids.
Right. So it's important to remember we're all trying to survive this, and this is new to everybody. So that's great that a good reminder that you pointed that out for all of us. And the kids, as they are adapting and showing us and, the things that they miss, and as we address them, I think that's one thing that across the board, everybody is experiencing, whether kids with exceptionalities or not. Another question for you, Erickson. One World School is known not just for the quality of education, but also for your therapeutic intervention program. Can you tell us more about that? And of course, how has this program translated now that everything is online and through the screen?
Sure. Actually, in addition to the therapeutic interventions program, we have others such as the preschool to junior high school program, which is a mix of typically developing kids and special kids in the same classroom. We have the pre-vocational and internship and transition program, which helps kids to be prepared for gainful employment after school. And of course, we have the individualized education program, which really caters to the individualized needs of all the kids. And of course, the therapeutic interventions program, we provide speech, occupational, and physical therapy. And right now, everything is online. So before we can make anything work online, or actually anywhere, you first have to believe that it's possible. Okay, we have to accept that it's not the same as on-site or face-to-face learning, but you really have to believe that this can work for the kids. We find that our belief system about the kids, especially about for those kids with special needs, it really impacts how you plan and how you find and make ways to make learning happen online. We find that the key here is that you never underestimate the kids and what they can do.
Absolutely, absolutely. So aside from being an inclusive school that offers all of, this full range of educational opportunities from preschool all the way up to vocational, it's clear that the way we address kids with special needs then, in many ways, I can even speak from a parental perspective, if we think that they can, and we encourage them that they can, then of course they will know that they can too, correct?
Correct. If everybody's on the same wavelength that the kids can do it, then you can start doing the legwork or the hard work for making it work. And that involves training, providing resources and support for everybody. And then you have to decide what kind of curriculum to actually teach, because you really have to prioritize, because you can't, the amount of time you have with the kids is actually less online.
Right.
So you learn how to prioritize the program for them.
Right. So then taking all of these things into consideration, Dr. Sia, in terms of development and learning, what are some of the things that parents need to understand when it comes to participating in educating and collaborating with the teachers for their children at home?
Well, there are several things that parents need to keep in mind. First of all of us need to accept that COVID is here to stay. So, and that we should all accept that teaching may be difficult and challenging, and that learning may be slower paced than what we expected from before. And so it's really important that teachers prioritize what to teach, and parents also, they need to prioritize what teachers want, what they want the teachers to teach their kids. Secondly, that would move forward to expectations. So there will be some changes in the expectations, okay? And then third, parents are still the expert for their children. They know their child best, okay? And so parents should believe in themselves. That's what Erickson was saying a while ago. And then for the children, all children need a routine. They need a schedule, because making things and events more predictable for them will really make them more available for learning.
Absolutely. So prioritizing, adjusting, believing, of course, in yourself, patting yourself on the back, you can do it, you can do it. And keeping things in order. It's not, you know what, Doc, it's not just important for the kids. I find it important also for myself.
That's right.
We're much more productive when we have a schedule and there's a routine set up for all of us. So aside from yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Michelle. I would like to add something to that one. Since we are all at home, because of the lockdown and quarantine, sometimes it gives us this false sense of feeling that we have all the time in the world when we don't. So there is that false security that we have the time, but that's why we need the schedule, so that everything that we have to do for ourselves and for our children can be done.
Okay, so question, Dr. Sia, are there any other things that we need to be, are there any other things that parents need to consider to be more effective in these newfound roles? I mean, you and I know we're not just taking care of the schooling while the kid's in front of the screen. We're also, if we're working from home, or, you know, if we are managing the household and doing these other things that we weren't focused on before because everybody's home, how else can we become more effective in the roles of, let's say, parent slash teacher?
Yeah. So, you know, parents are humans. So I think parents should be aware that they get tired. You know, it can be really exhausting to be a parent, you know, to do the household chores, to cook, to do your work, to be a teacher. So it's really, really exhausting. And I think it's important for parents to be aware of that, you know. And so if you're aware that you get tired, you need to tell yourself, hey, you know what, I think I need to rest, you know, so that, because if you are well rested, then you will be able to help your child better. You know? So you should be aware of your mental health, your emotional state, including your physical health as well. So I think that is very important for parents. You know, there's no such thing as a super parent. It doesn't exist.
Absolutely. Self-awareness, and you know, the saying, you have to fill your own cup as well, right? Taking care of yourself and self-care, all of those are connected. Okay, so we'll move on to the special tools. There are special tools, there are individual approaches. Erickson, you mentioned earlier the IEP. We know that each child, of course, learns differently and experiences things differently. These are usually all of these things that we can find that are assistive, whether they're on the school campus or within the classroom. These are all tools that can be utilized in teaching our children. Now that we have blended learning and virtual learning, asynchronous and synchronous, how can we take those things into consideration, maybe makeshift some things at home, and then make a more effective, or create a more effective learning environment for our kids as we continue to navigate and adjust and reassess?
I think the, where to start is that you have to accept that what happens on site does not have to be replicated online.
Yes, yes.
You cannot expect, or nobody should be expecting that the way things were done in school should be exactly the same as the way that should be done online. This is actually the best time to make changes or to innovate, you know, be creative and take risks. So you just have to make sure that the parents and the teachers give themselves permission to do that. And I want to emphasize also, and echo on what Dr. Sia said, that so the parents are not super parents. So I want everybody to also understand that the teachers are not super teachers.
Yes.
So one of the things we do to make this effective is, I think it's really important, and we're learning how to do this. We have not perfected it yet, but we're trying, and that is to take care of the teachers, because ultimately they're the ones who are providing the education through the screen. And so as Harold said, Dr. Sia, if the teachers are healthy, if they're well rested, then they can do their job very well. So when we talk about taking care of teachers, this is what we mean. We look at their physical and mental well-being. We provide training, resources. We look for different ways to support them, whether it's mentors or buddies. We make sure that there's open communication. The teachers have to feel like they can talk to me and their colleagues honestly and openly about their struggles, because if they don't have that avenue to discuss, then those issues probably won't be resolved. And that will, of course, affect the kids. Another way to take care of them is to listen to them and act on what they're telling you. That way they really trust that they can talk to you. And of course, always adjusting to make sure that the teachers are healthy. I think for me, that's very important. And we're learning that's really key to making this work.
Absolutely. We are surviving a pandemic and we're all doing it together. We're all in the same boat, right? Everyone's trying to get through in a healthy way. What are some of the advantages to this? We talked about how we're prioritizing and how we're adjusting expectations, even curriculum and these types of things, and adjusting our expectations and knowing that it's not the same at home as it is in school. One thing that popped in my mind is just to how our kids are home. They are learning different things at home. Maybe some of those chores that we used to do on our own can also be delegated to the kids. But in terms of advantages and disadvantages, so Dr. Sia, what do you see some of the advantages are besides having the kids help out with chores?
Okay. So, I think everybody should know first that there are no scientific studies done on this kind of learning because the COVID-19, this pandemic, is unprecedented. But having said that, anecdotally, I think a very important advantage of blended learning or online learning right now is that the parents are directly involved and they can directly observe what their child is doing. So unlike before, when their children go to school, a lot of things happen at school. There are also things that happen at home. So sometimes there are differences in what the teachers observe and what the parents observe. But now, since everything is happening at home, the parents can really see, okay, so this is what he does, this is what he can do, this is what I should do, etc., etc. And second one, of course, the comfort of home. If the child is in his safe space, so to speak. For some children, they are more relaxed, less anxious, and more available for learning, but not for all children though. Okay. As for the disadvantage, the only thing that I can think of is that it's for the parents disadvantage because more time is, the parent needs to give more time now for educating the child. And so the time that the parents used before in working or for other things, for the parents' time as well, is now given to the child. So there are other disadvantages, the spot in my mind, the other risks of online, of course, for some children, they may be distracted by other online apps, There's also the disadvantage of potential child abuse. Okay, that might be a left field answer, but you know what? The incidence, although child abuse reports have been decreasing, but if you just think about it, all children are at home now. And most of the time, perpetrators are at home. Right. And if the child is not listening for online learning, right. Whether the parent is supervising or a caregiver is supervising, and if the patience of that person supervising the child is so low, it's so easy for that person. It may be easy for that person to get angry and get angry at the child. So the child abuse disadvantage is right there.
Right, that's one.
Hacking, of course. Hacking of the online tools. So those are the things.
Okay. So hopefully we're not seeing lots of those situations arise, the most extreme circumstances. Okay. One of the disadvantages that I can actually see is Erickson, you mentioned it earlier, the physical interaction with peers, the social, and even as Best Buddies Executive Director, I know that our buddies who are often socially isolated to begin with suffer that loss of social interaction. How have the kids been responding to this learning environment now where they're not actually interacting physically with their peers and their teachers? Do you have the teachers or the educators shared anything about this and the children or the students looking for others physically as well?
Yes, actually, it's the parents who are telling us how they're doing with this change. Some kids actually like it. They prefer to stay home. As Dr. C said, there's anxiety with the social pressures of being in a large school or a small school. And then a lot of kids really miss being in school. So what we do with our online classes is that as for the kids where it's really appropriate, the teachers schedule socialization period where they don't have to do academics.
Wonderful. That's great.
They don't have to do anything that it's unstructured. It's out. And this really more for the older kids where they hang out. And in the beginning, there's a teacher who facilitates. And then hopefully by after some time, the kids will do it themselves. So they really do hang out. They're not there physically, but they're still there to engage and connect with each other online.
Fantastic. That type of socialization is what we look for as well, on Friday nights. I know parents and friends, when we're done with the work week, and it's wonderful that the teachers in One World are setting that up for the older kids. That's fantastic. Okay, so we know that when parents, teachers, educators, even the therapists, when we're looking at supporting the students, the kids, it's really a trifecta. It's a team working together in order to see the student achieve the greatest level of success, we need to ultimately support each other. What are some ways, aside from that open line of communication that you mentioned, that we can support one another in this situation that is, of course, like Dr. Sia mentioned, unprecedented. We are living in unprecedented times.
Okay, so some of the things that we can do that can help both sides, the teachers and the parents, is that we can schedule time for them to have the training. So some parents need training on how to set up their home so it's conducive to learning. Some parents need training on how to manage the kids so that they are attentive during the lessons. And then the other side, the teachers also need to get the training from the parents. As Dr. Sia said earlier, the parents are the experts of the kids. So
of the children.
Yes, exactly. So
Yes.
we're learning a lot from the parents. And one of the advantages of this pandemic is that the teachers and the parents are getting to know each other very well.
Intimately.
Yes.
Yes.
So getting to know all of their challenges and every little triumph they share on Facebook or Viber. So it's cheering for the kids. So celebrating those kinds of successes is also important because if we don't, then we can always focus on what's difficult, which is kind of a downer, right?
Right, and who needs anything down right now during this time at all? Dr. Sia, maybe there's something you could share on how parents, teachers, and the teams can work together and support one another for the benefit of the child.
So Erickson said it very well, but just to emphasize, communication nowadays is much more important. So communication between the school and the teachers really is even more important than before. So both teams need to know what works, what doesn't work. Okay, Erickson, I also agree with what Erickson said that for some children, the focus of the online learning is for the adult. Okay, so it's really teaching the parent. Okay, because really when you talked about tools earlier and the instruments, the two most important instruments really are the parent and the teacher. Those are the two most important tools. The third is just the plan. But in any case, so communication again, and then really focusing on one skill at a time. So it can feel overwhelming, really. It's really overwhelming. But if you just focus on one skill at a time, what's important in the moment, then things may be easier. And again, the trust. I think it's really important for parents to believe and trust that what the teachers or the school is doing will really help their children.
Michelle, if I might add something.
Sure.
This is for the families with siblings at home. I think one of the important things to keep in mind is that we should not be comparing the kids and adapting to online learning because some kids will really love it and take to it very quickly, and others in the same family might be resistant to it in the beginning. Right. So it's okay. So definitely it's not good practice to compare, and it's better to just accept where the kids are. Yes. And then work closely with the teachers to help the kids make progress at their own pace. I think that's very important.
Yes, very important. Progress, not perfection. So in this case, the constant readjusting and reassessing, this is something that we're all doing, not just parents, but also teachers and therapists. And As we do that, of course, we're helping the students. Of course, we're also helping ourselves, adjusting those expectations. I feel like, things that used to be important, I know this is true for so many of us, things that used to be important, of course, are not as important as they are now. What can parents do to ensure that, because this is a problem actually, this is a problem not just for kids with exceptionalities and special needs. What can we do to keep them engaged, right? Erickson.
Okay, I think rest is important.
Yes.
You can't possibly be engaged if you're too tired. And I believe all of us are really eager to make this work. So we might be overwhelming everybody with the things we need to do. So we have to look at, are the things that the kids are doing online, is it the right amount of time? I mean, the right amount of work? Is it the right kind of work? Do we know the kids well enough to provide them a really customized program? Our goal for the kids is for them to want to come to the screen to engage with their teachers. So if they're home and there's something better to do, like watch TV or they're in the bed, someone can convince them to go on the screen with you. And that would require you to really understand what the kids' interests are, what they like doing, and what frustrates them. Because if you present something online that's frustrating for them or too online, because there's something they can do better at home or in their bedroom or in the living room. The other thing for the parents, they really, this is a hard job, but I think they're the best people to do it. They have to remember that they are the #1 advocates for their kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They have to advocate that their kids can learn and that they deserve to be learning.
Okay. I definitely see that in terms of what the kids are doing now at all the levels. I have in from college all the way to grade 3, keeping it relevant to them, right? Things they like, really basing everything then on that individualized attention that I think parents can provide insight to, and teachers can also share with the parents. That's wonderful. Okay, so parting thoughts as we close everything out here, and the viewers who've been watching, I think we understand that this is a time when we need to be kind to ourselves and readjust and prioritize. And of course, even if we're on a schedule, being kind to ourselves, we don't meet that schedule all the time. Parting thoughts for educators, Erickson. What are some key points or advice that you can give them as we continue to move forward, right? Always keeping in mind progress, not perfection. And then Doxia, maybe you could share for parents, what are some key points that if you want to summarize or put it all together or even add some that we haven't talked about yet. So Erickson, we'll start with you and educators. What are some key points that you think they need to take away from this?
Okay, for educators, one key point that they should take away is that everybody understands, or everybody should understand the tremendous challenge and pressure for them to perform to make this work for everybody. So that's important that this is clear, that it's really, really hard. So what I want the educators to do is to take some time to do some self-reflection. I want them to think about why they became teachers, and then think about how they can translate that to the online learning, because it's really hard. But if you go back to your foundation of why you became a teacher, everything else I really believe will fall into place.
Your why. That's your why, right? So let's remind our educators why they got into this, and of course, taking everything else, stripping it all away, remembering that why they got into teaching in the first place. Doxia, what parting advice do you have for parents in these unprecedented times?
Okay, well, some important points for parents to remember. First, they really need to prepare themselves and their child or children. Okay. Number 2, it's teamwork. So all members of the household, so it's not just mommy, it's not just daddy, everybody all able adults should really contribute so that the special needs child will progress. Okay, and then we should all we should all use all modes of learning. So be it visual, oral, experiential, and you can be very creative. And last again, to emphasize again, set up a routine, set up a schedule. You can be creative on how you set it up. You can put timers, you can put picture schedules. If you think about it, so that everything will be taken into consideration and nothing will be forgotten. Okay.
Wonderful, wonderful. Nothing is lost in that situation, right? We're all learning and learning and taking from one another as well. So catch us next week as we delve into virtual learning's challenges at the high school and tertiary level. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.